Welcome, everyone, to what we are watching. We have finally made it. We are on episode 22,
Double
Double
deuces.
Deuce. And folks, I'm gonna take responsibility here. I know it's been 2.5 years, but we have finally gotten to the end of the Sopranos. And 96% of that I will put on myself. There was 4% of the time where TJ had other stuff to do, but 96% of the time it's on me. But that's all right. We said it before when we got the YouTube channel created from that. We started at the bottom. Now we're here.
Now we are here.
How are you, TJ, my friend?
I'm good this day, man, because it's double deuces. You can't not get excited and geeked up for double deuces. What are you talking about?
And spoiler for you, my friend, that moment in real life would have gotten Tony Soprano killed. But we will get into it. We will get into it. But we're going to start out. We can't get to the end until we start it. So let's start out. Kennedy and Heidi is the 18th episode of season 6, the 6th episode of the second half of the season, and the 83rd. And I'm going to try this because they were pulling out some fancy words for me. This is the pre-antepenultimate episode overall, which means it's fourth from the last.
Pre-anti-penultimate. Boom.
Yes. It was, and TJ's phone is excited for that.
It really did.
Word.
It really
it's
did.
the word of the day. It's the word of the day.
That's exactly what
It was written by Matthew Weiner and series creator and showrunner David Chase and directed by Alan Taylor. It premiered in the United States on May the 13th, 2007. The heads of the Lupertazzi and DeMeo families meet to discuss the removal of asbestos from a building project. Phil refuses to allow Tony to illegally dump the asbestos in his territory unless he is given a 25% cut of the money. Tony rejects Phil's demand. While driving home with Tony from the meeting, Christopher suggests that Tony take Phil's offer, but Tony disagrees, claiming it would show weakness. Chris is visibly agitated and repeatedly changes the radio station, finally settling for a CD soundtrack of The Departed. Chris continues to be distracted by the stereo as the road curves, causing him to drive into the opposite lane and swerve his Cadillac Escalade EXT off the road in a rollover crash. Tony exits the wreckage with minor injuries, but Chris is seriously injured and has difficulty breathing. He tells Tony to call a taxi for him as he will not pass a drug test. Tony begins to call for help, but after noticing that a tree branch has impaled Chris's vehicle directly where his daughter's baby seat was located, Tony suffocates him by pinching his nose shut, killing him before calling an ambulance. At the hospital, he leads the staff and his family to believe that Chris died instantly from the crash.
So we finally this is like we're getting to the meat and potatoes of it all. So we're now seeing the culmination of all the relationship building that we had with regards to Chris and Tony. Tony coming to Chris saying, "Hey man, I need somebody from the family close to me, man. I'm going to be dependent on you." And we saw a little glimpse of that with Chris actually being the one that was with him in New York, for this meeting.
Right.
And then we learned what it meant when your speakers have no bang, aka the system has no balls. Didn't know that was a thing, but then I got in my car and I turned the radio up loud and I was like, you know what? Chris is right. This system has no balls. But that Departed soundtrack was really dope. So I guess if you gotta go to the Departed soundtrack.
If I did not know, now I did know because when this came out, folks, unless you were living under a rock, when the finale came, everybody was talking about the finale. But right. if I went into this and I had no idea how this show ended, I would have said that it ends with the last episode with Tony either killing Christopher or Christopher killing Tony.
Yeah.
And I was going to guess on the latter. I was not expecting that And if they said, "Oh, Christopher's not going to make it to the end of the series, he's going to die in this episode," I would have expected it to be the last thing. I would not expecting it to be this early. But it's interesting.
No, to your point, man, with the show going like it has, and Chris's fate has been directly woven through this thing. Like there have been several times that Chris could have died, and we would have just been like, "Yeah, that makes sense." Not by the Vipers, not
Right.
that one. The Vipers couldn't have done it, but still, had it happened in the finale, I would have said, yeah, that's justified, which obviously we'll get into whenever we look at the film to see who's narrating that film and how that film starts off. Christopher is woven in through all of this. So, per usual, whenever a major character goes, we got to get that salute, man. R.I.P. Christopher, bro. He made movies. He had grandiose idea and a temper problem, but that's about all I got. No veto for him. No veto for him.
No veto. No veto.
No veto.
In a dream, Tony admits to Dr. Melfi that he killed Chris along with Pussy and Tony B. He also regrets ever placing Chris in a position of power and is relieved that his death has now eliminated his biggest blunder. Those books should have stayed closed.
Yep.
After he awakens the next day, Tony asks Carmela if she feels any relief at Chris's death, which she denies. During his actual session with Melfi, he simply recalls Chris as a liability and an embarrassment, and he says he resents having to feign remorse in front of his family. At Chris's wake, Tony is disgusted by the ostentatious display of sorrow. He and Carmela make an appearance at the wake of Paulie's adopted mother, Nucci, who has died of a stroke. Paulie is angered by the poor attendance and thinks Chris has upstaged him once again.
Because it's all about that.
Right.
Paulie has got to be the saltiest thing, man. Like, really.
AJ continues to spend time with Jason Parisi and Jason Gervaisi at their frat house. They're amused to learn that Victor, whom they injured with sulfuric acid, had to have 2 toes amputated. AJ impresses his therapist by telling him that he is taking college courses again. Jason Gervaisi is hanging out with some friends when a Somalia boy on a bicycle collides with their car. The boys beat the immigrant, which is witnessed by AJ and causes him to relapse into depression. However, AJ tries to take steps to get a grip on himself and prevent the depression from festering. He takes over the situation with the therapist. He talks over the situation with the therapist and wonders if he should have intervened. He is also keeping current with his classes and remarked how one course discussed the Arab-Israeli conflict. AJ makes a philosophical remark. Nobody knows who started it. Tony eavesdropped on Joanne, Carmela, and Kelly discussing Chris's death. On a private trip to Las Vegas, he receives another call from Phil, who refuses to assist with the asbestos removal and mocks him over Chris's death. Tony meets Sonia, a stripper Chris knew, and tells her about his death. They have sex and smoke marijuana. She tells him he seems sad. They take peyote and win in roulette. Tony mumbles he's dead and collapses on the floor laughing, seemingly attributing his winning streak to the fact that Chris is no longer in his life.
Well, look, we did have a major losing streak by Tony for a while.
Oh, yes.
Like he was on a spiral. Like he was throwing more and more money after money. So for him to go and win that quickly, yeah.
In Jersey, the asbestos is dumped into a lake. Tony and Sonia watch the sunrise over the Red Rock Canyon, where Tony cries, "I get it."
I did it.
He says, "I get it."
He says, "I get it."
I thought he said,
"I did it." I spent all these years thinking that he confessed to Joshua Tree that he actually did it.
Well, it says here that he says, "I get it." So I'll go back today. I've got it on Max and I've got the DVDs. We will
Let me know what you think, bro.
We will have a definitive answer, folks.
Put those captions on, bro, because like I say, I thought in that moment that was his confessing, because he just yells out, "I did it," no one knows what he's talking about. He's on peyote. I thought he was just yelling, "I did it," and that was his confession. And but again, I get it makes sense as well because he's understanding everything now.
6 factors can be counted to have influenced Christopher crashing the car. The crash happens when he is high, changing the radio. Tony is asking him a question. The road turns into a curve. It is nighttime, and an opposing direction car emerges. The episode has frequently been cited by critics and fans as one of the show's best and is noted for its thematic complexity and the plot twist early in the episode. It was nominated for an Emmy Award for writing and won for directing. And the episode's name is a reference to the 1969 Chappaquiddick incident involving U.S. Senator Ted Kennedy, where his passenger died under dubious circumstances. So that's why it's called Kennedy and Heidi.
So I'll say this, and Tony's behavior, whenever it came down to it, it seemed like he wanted people to say bad things about Chris because he would always bring up the car seat.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the car seat was mangled. I mean, it's just like just trying to get people to say something like, "Oh, it's a good thing that happened and the baby wasn't in the car," or something like that. Like he ultimately wanted that to be the end result. I don't think it ever happened, but still, he tried several times to mention that car seat.
And I think subconsciously, that's also him saying that's the reason why I had to take this guy out. I knew that if I had covered for him like I had done, something worse would have happened later.
Something worse would have happened later, and that's him. That's what he. But we don't know that Christopher ever did drugs while he was with his family.
Right.
We just know that in this particular instance, he was supposed to be clean.
Right.
And what he says, I can't pass a drug test. You got to take care of me. I can't pass a drug test.
Right. So that leads us to the second coming. It's the 7th episode of part 2 and the 19th episode of season 6. It is the 84th and the anti-penultimate episode. They are just doing everything they can. It's like, look, we know after a couple of episodes, nobody's coming back to this site because we're just throwing it all out there. It's written by Terrence Winter and directed by Tim Van Patten. Originally aired on May the 20th, 2007. Tony is awakened when a sleepless AJ turns on some rap music. Downstairs, Carmela recalls that Tony said he went to Las Vegas to wrap up some of Christopher's business there and mentions that his widow, Kelly, will need financial support now. When Tony shows up at Satriel's, a framed picture of Chris taken on the set of Cleaver has been put up on the wall by his crew. Tony wistfully tells the guy about his sex and peyote experience in Vegas, but when they do not seem to be captivated by it, he changes the subject. Tony is accompanied by Silvio and Bobby as he goes to a sit-down with Phil in New York. Tony tries to reach a compromise with Phil about the asbestos removal project, but Phil refuses to consider anything else than his original position. Tony then tries to appealing to his senses by publicly reminding him of the talk they had while Phil was in the hospital. Phil rejects Tony's offer out of hand and emphasizes the compromises he was already forced to make in his life, including his prison term. Tony reacts to Phil's stubbornness by taking his men Coco and Butchie off the payroll from another construction project. Butchie and Coco viciously beat the foreman and steal his wallet when he gives them the bad news. It's always the messenger. It is always the messenger.
I will say, though, because, there's not a lot about Phil that I like. I mean, the character, obviously he does a good job. I'm just saying him as a person and individual. But how he delivers those lines there with talking about compromise, I thought was a very, very well done scene. I wanted Matty Galt. I got grilled cheese over the radiator. I wanted a woman. I had my hand in a napkin. He just went down this list of stuff of compromise, and I'm like, man, that was heavy.
I did 20 fucking years.
That's it. That's it.
FBI agents Harris and Goddard visit Satriel's and ask Tony to look at some photos. Tony identifies Ahmed Muhammad, whose Harris says are possibly financing terrorism. Meanwhile, AJ expresses his despair to his therapist, who asked him to consider a connection between his breakup with Blanca and the assault he witnessed, which triggered the return of his depression. After reading W.B. Yeats' poem, The Second Coming, AJ begins expressing a pessimistic worldview. He attempts suicide in the family pool, but is rescued by Tony when he happens to return home. AJ is put on Valium and admitted to a psychiatric ward.
I want to say this, and I need everybody to understand that this is 1,000% for the show. I do not joke when it comes to suicide in real time. But if anybody had to not be able to do it, it was going to be AJ. Like AJ, I think he gave himself enough rope. Like it was, I really do think this was a cry for help. I don't think AJ legitimately wanted to kill himself. And then I feel bad for the kid because, I mean, what coping skills does he really have? I'm like, he's indulged on every opportunity he can be indulged in. And then when things don't go his way, he lashes out like his father does. When Tony came and got him out of the water, all AJ could do was bawl in his arm. Right. And that's just, that moment right there. I felt bad for AJ. I really did feel bad for him because he's at that point, like, what else do I do? Right. Like, what else do I do besides kill myself? But the thing about it is he didn't even really want to do that. Like, so it was heavy. It was heavy.
Right. When Tony talks to his crews about AJ's suicide attempt, Silvio, Patsy, and Carlo attempt to comfort him with stories of their own children's tough times. When Tony tells Carmela he feels depressed, an argument between them erupts.
Not you too.
Carmela blames AJ's conditions on Tony's family's genetic predisposition towards depression. In Dr. Melfi's office, Tony says he is ashamed of his son because of his suicide attempt and dismisses Melfi's suggestion that AJ subconsciously didn't really want to die. You and Dr. Melfi on the same page, my friend.
On the same page, man. I mean, like, bro, he was there alone. If he legit wanted to go, he could have went.
And you see, in my head, that would have been the perfect time to put you there. You're right beside Melfi. You got your notepad. Tony's like, who is this? Oh, that's TJ. Okay. And then you enter like this. And then continue to write.
Just slide on. Love it.
And you never mentioned again.
Nope.
Tony talks about the Sopranos curse that Carmela mentioned, but refuses to shoulder all the blame. Melfi tells him Tony should understand his son, since he has dealt with depression himself. Boy, I tell you what, that last sentence, those last two sentences, that is Tony Soprano, and he talks about that, but refuses to take any responsibility or take any of the blame. That's Tony Soprano.
That is what the problem is. It's just talk around everything, throw presents and gifts and money at any problem that you can. Yeah.
So now we get into what I call we're headed towards the end game. We're not at the end game yet, but we're absolutely headed there.
Getting close.
While Meadow has another mystery date in New York, a drunken Coco comes over to her table and makes several lewd comments before Albie escorts him out. After Meadow tells Carmela what happened, she reluctantly tells Tony. Meadow tells her parents that her boyfriend is Patrick Parisi, Patsy's eldest son. After Tony leaves angrily, Meadow tells Carmela that she has decided to enter law school, inspired by Patrick's passion about the justice system. When Melfi sees Dr. Kupferberg, he shares with her the results of a recent study which has shown that sociopaths are not helped by talk therapy, but rather only further enabled by it, perhaps even sharpening their skills as con men. In the process, Melfi stays silent. Tony pistol whips and curb stomps Coco while threatening an onlooking Butchie with his gun. At a group session with AJ psychiatrist with Tony and Carmela attending, AJ recalls times when he felt humiliated by his mother and depressed by his visits to his grandmother Olivia. As Tony listens, he noticed one of Coco's bloody teeth in the cuff of his pant leg. At the office, Patsy talks warmly with Tony about the budding romance between Patrick and Meta. Little Carmine arrives to tell Tony that he will once again broker a truce meeting with Phil regarding Coco's beating. Little Carmine just cannot help himself.
I don't want little Carmine involved in nothing because you know he's going to say something to get something going. How about that curd stomp, by the way?
And then he's like, what? I'm trying to help. Did you not see that I'm mediating here?
Bro, like, no, but real world stuff, before we move too much further beyond Coco, looks like you got some cream on your mouth there, sweetie. Bro. To the daughter? Bro, like, Coco asked for everything that he got. And then Rusty on the side, you don't want to do this. No, he really does. He really does.
He does, but he should not want to. But he absolutely does.
Oh, bro, you could see the good feels. He was enjoying every moment of what he did, and then pointed that gun at Rusty like, you don't want none of this. And I'm directing the anger at the person who deserves it. Because he had the gun on Coco. He could have killed, I'm not Coco. He had the gun on Rusty. He could have killed Rusty too. Like, no, this is not at your family. This is at this dude right here for messing with my daughter. Some cream on her mouth. I got your cream. I don't even know what that means. What, I got your cream? What is that? Come on,
Phil has shut down one of their joint construction projects. Tony is angry he will have to make concessions to Phil, but agrees he overreacted. Tony's beating of Coco opens a deep rift between the Soprano and Lupertazzi families. Phil refuses to even meet with Tony and little Carmine when they show up at his house in Brooklyn, offering concessions. And Butchie mocks their peace offering of Makita drills. After Butchie closes the door on Tony and Carmine, Phil yells from behind the second floor window that there's nothing left to discuss between the families and spews profanity at them as they walk away.
Go the fuck back to Jersey.
Tony visits AJ at the hospital with a large pizza. The pizza is confiscated, and with the glass doors to the mental health ward sliding shut behind him, Tony walks down the hall to his son. He places a hand on his shoulder as they begin to talk. Title reference: the episode is named after the 1919 poem by W.B. Yeats about the apocalypse.
Which all signs point to all these things that are happening that are leading to essentially what we call the beginning of the end. When you do this with Coco and then seeing to the point where Phil wouldn't even come outside. He's yelling outside of a window like a child.
Right.
Like, I was just like thrown the first time I saw this. I was like, this dude is so soft because he's not coming outside, but he's going to tough talk from the window. Yeah.
Had you caught up in real time by this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. By the time we got to this, I was watching them as they were coming out. So I saw all of this season in real time.
Nice. That brings us to the Blue Comet. It's the 8th episode of part 2 and the 20th episode of season 6. It is the 85th and penultimate overall episode, written by David Chase and Matt Weiner and directed by Alan Taylor. It originally aired on June the 3rd, 2007. Mm-hmm. Silvio Garat, Soprano soldier Bert Gervasi at his home. Later in Brooklyn, Phil tells Albie and Butchie that he has decided to eliminate the DeMeos. As justification, Phil reminds them of their past grievances with the Sopranos, such as Fat Dom's disappearance and Billy's murder. He orders Albie and Butchie to organize the hits. Butchie and Albie set up an after-hours meeting with their own subordinates and set Phil's plan in motion by ordering the murders of Silvio, Tony, and Bobby within 24 hours. AJ
Tight window.
receives psychiatric treatment and is regularly visited by his parents. He starts a relationship with Rhiannon Flammer, an ex-girlfriend of his friend Herman O'Brien, who has been hospitalized for dietary problems. AJ is eventually discharged and sent back home under the watchful but sympathetic eye of his family. Tony is once again visited at Satrial's by Agent Harris, who tells him that an informant in the Lupertazzi's has tipped him off about Phil's planned move against the Sopranos. Silvio informs Tony that he has eliminated Bert after learning he was a double agent for the Lupertazzi's. Tony, Silvio, and Bobby convene at Vesuvio, where Tony breaks the news to them about Phil's plans to kill them and of his decision to preemptively kill Phil first, using the Italian hitmen who performed the hit on Rusty. Meanwhile, at a dinner party with colleagues, Dr. Melfi hears again of the study claiming sociopaths take advantage of talk therapy, leading to a confrontation with the other guests. Melfi's psychiatrist, Dr. Kupferberg, indifferently breaks the doctor-patient confidentiality by revealing that Tony is Melfi's patient, embarrassing her. Later at home, she thoroughly reads the study herself and is convinced of its findings. Before his next session with Melfi, Tony rips out a page from a cooking magazine in the waiting room.
Yeah.
Melfi exhibits hostility towards Tony throughout the session, sarcastically suggesting aggressiveness for his problems. Tony takes offense, which prompts Melfi to suggest referring him to a different therapist. Tony attempts to defuse the argument, but Melfi insists they are done and uses Tony's action of ripping out the magazine page as an example of his disrespect and lack of seriousness to therapy. Although he recently said he wanted to quit therapy himself, Tony is still aghast that Melfi would end their sessions not long after his son's attempted suicide. Before leaving, Tony demonstratively puts the page back into the magazine and leaves. Melfi closes the door, symbolically ending her professional relationship with Tony. The order to kill Phil is passed down to Corky Caprial, who contacts the Italian assassins. However, the hitmen stake out the home of Phil's Ukrainian Guma and confuse her visiting father for Phil. Both are shot dead. Inability to get good help.
Ching.
Corky receives the news from the assassins, and although noting the discrepancies in the hitmen's accounts, tells Patsy that the hit went on as planned. At the Bada Bing, Silvio and Paulie learn of the mistake when Murmur shows them a newspaper article on the murders. At Vesuvio, Tony tells Carmela that he has quit therapy. The two put on a good face as they talk with Artie and Charmaine about their children. Janice visits Tony and tries to persuade him to help Bobby pay for Junior's living arrangements at his mental institution. Junior has run out of money and will have to be moved to a state-run psychiatric facility. Tony angrily refuses and expresses disgust at Bobby for continuing to show empathy for Junior. He's informed by Silvio about the failed hit on Phil, who has been in hiding and has already set his plans in motion. Tony immediately orders Silvio to inform everyone in the family to break their routines and go into hiding themselves until Phil can be located. However, Bobby has gone to a hobby store in Lynbrook, New York to buy a rare model Blue Comet train and leaves his ringing phone behind in his car. While Bobby is at the counter, two gunmen enter and shoot him dead.
Damn, Bobby. All you want to do is play with them trains, baby. That's all you want to do. You just want to be a conductor. You would have let him crash.
Mm-hmm.
You just want to be a conductor, man. But one of my all-time favorite, because I got to give a tribute to my guy, all-time favorite scenes came with Bobby in the fleshy part of the ass, walking out there with his food. Ah! Love it. Thank you for that, Bobby Bacala.
Silvio and Patsy rush to pick up important items from the Bing. They are intercepted by two Lupertazzi hitmen, Ray and PDB, and fired upon. Silvio is hit multiple times while Patsy abandons the car and flees while returning fire. Silvio is left in a medically induced coma from which doctors do not think he will awaken. Tony arrives back home and, hearing about the hits, orders his family to go into hiding. Carmelo and Meadow visit the Bacalars, who are all in shock over Bobby's death. At nightfall, Tony, Paulie, Carlo, Walden Belfiore, and Dante Greco drive to an old suburban safe house. Tony goes upstairs to get some sleep. Sitting by the bed, Tony remembers Bobby's words that you probably don't even hear it when it happens.
Laying groundwork, people. Laying groundwork. And I thought, correct me if I thought that house that they went to was a new spec house for Carmela. I thought that she had bought that. And I may be wrong. I thought she had bought that. That was another house that she was getting ready to try and flip.
I don't remember that, but he remembers it from his birthday trip. Tony sleeps clutching the AR-10 assault rifle that Bobby gave him for his birthday. All right, so we've got deaths here. We got Bert Gervasi, garroted by Silvio for joining the Lupertazzi family. We got Alec and Urena Kostropovich was shot along with her father for witnessing his murder. He was shot by Italia because he was confused with Phil.
Right.
And then we got Bobby Bacallar, gunned down while shopping for the eponymous toy train, the Blue Comet.
The Blue Comet.
Trivia: James Gandolfini's dialogue coach on the show, Susan Ashton, has a small role in this episode as Evelyn. The final appearances of Dr. Melfi, the Buccos, and Elliot. The episode is named after the train with the same name. The locomotive without the tender is a Lionel 400E instead of a Lionel Legacy G3 class by Lionel. And then that gets us to Made in America. Go ahead.
So, and again, you're talking about, because now I look at how we film things, and I thought it was really, really dope. In the toy store scene, you hear the gas right before Bobby's getting ready to get shot, and they're showing the different reactions from the people in the model village. Mm-hmm. So you got the person with their the hands on the side, the mouth's wide open, and the shock look. So again, that's just paying attention to detail. I enjoyed that aspect of it because you knew something was getting ready to happen, right? But not quite knowing what was coming. And then again, just getting to see those little toy figurines, facial expressions, and the reaction to what was coming. I thought that was pretty cool.
Made in America. It's the 9th episode of season 6, part 2, the 21st overall episode of season 6, and the series finale of The Sopranos. It is the 86th overall and final episode of the series, written and directed by series creator and showrunner David Chase. It originally aired on June the 10th, 2007. Tony is in hiding with his crew. At nightfall, he meets FBI agent Harris and gives him information about Ahmed and Muhammad. In exchange, he asks for Phil's location, but Harris says he knows nothing. Tony visits his family in the safe house where they are hiding and later joins them in attending Bobby's funeral. Tony visits Janice at her house. She tells him that she will raise Bobby's children. Harris calls Tony with information that Phil has been using payphones from gas stations in Oyster Bay, Long Island, and Tony's crew begins surveilling gas stations in the area. Butchie and Ray Ray await anxiously for news on Tony's whereabouts in the now significantly shrunken and cold Little Italy. Phil calls Butchie from a payphone, expresses anger about his failure to kill Tony, and rejects Butchie's suggestion to make peace. Phil vaguely threatens Butchie before hanging up. After Phil abruptly hangs up on him, Butchie looks up and realizes he mistakenly strayed onto Chinatown. He decides to turn back. Tony meets with Butchie and Albie to negotiate without Phil's knowledge. Butchie refuses to disclose his boss's location, but agrees to a truce and tells Tony to do what you got to do. Tony and his family move back into their North Caldwell home. Benny and Walden track Phil to a gas station and shoot him dead. Agent Harris is pleased by this news, seemingly because there was an FBI pool on which crime family would kill the other.
Right. Damn, we're going to win this.
Now, Phil Leotardo's death.
Yes. Yes.
It's also called, let's make no mistake that this man is dead.
This man is dead. Because, like I'm saying, again, let's get crowd reaction. How often do we get crowd reaction when these people die? This is the one. Everybody's reaction is played, right? Because not only is this man put down, his wife is freaking out. The kids are in the car. She locks the door. The car starts rolling. Old buddy's trying to help her stop it from rolling. He can't stop the car. I know this is a big SUV, but I mean, come on, man. It's not that difficult to stop the car from rolling, but nah, that thing is going. And then when it hits his face, you got my one guy. Somebody just freaks out like he's just completely blown away. You got the little young kid throwing up on the side. It's just, yeah. If you gotta go, overkill is the way to go.
It reminds me of that episode of Bob's Burgers where he lets Tina drive and there's only one other car. Do anything. Turn one.
Love it.
AJ and his girlfriend Rhiannon escaped from his Nissan Xterra after he left its engine running in dry leaves and let it catch fire. He takes up jogging and tells his parents that he intends to join the army. They arrange for him to work for Little Carmine's film production company instead.
He wants to be a private pilot for the Don and for Diddy. So he's like, so Tony's like, wait. So is the Don gonna give you weekends off to go fight wars?
Meadow and Patrick announce that they are engaged and that Meadow may land a job at a law firm. Meadow tells Tony she wants to defend those oppressed by the government, particularly immigrants. She considers her father a victim of FBI prejudice against Italian Americans. Tony visits the comatose Silvio in the hospital. Carlo goes missing. Paulie hears he may have become an informant after his son Jason was arrested on a drugs charge. Tony's lawyer Neil Mink tells Tony that Carlo is likely testifying and that Tony will be indicted. With Carlo gone, Tony meets with Paulie at Satriale's and offers him the leadership of the April crew. Paulie initially refuses, worrying that the crew is cursed, but accepts when Tony tells him that he will offer the position to Patsy. When Tony leaves, Paulie is left sitting alone at Satriale's, the cat staring at him being the only living thing left next to him.
And that is the cat that will not leave Chris's side, like will not leave his picture. So it's hilarious that cat is the thing that is left with Paulie, considering he really doesn't care for the cat.
Janice visits an Alzheimer's-ridden Junior in a state-run care home to tell him of Bobby's death, but Junior is too confused to understand. Pat tells Tony he believes Janice is scheming to claim for herself the last money Junior's accountant is holding. Tony claims he no longer cares about what happens to Junior, but decides to visit him one last time to prevent the money from going to Janice. Tony visits Junior and tells him to give the money to Bobby's children, but realizes Junior does not recognize him. Tony tries to get Junior to remember the money's location, but Junior doesn't remember what the money even was. Junior reacts with surprise when Tony reminds him of his involvement in the mafia, and Tony leaves with tears in his eyes. The Sopranos arranged... What?
I'm saying that was heavy.
It was heavy.
Yeah.
The Sopranos arranged to meet at a diner. Tony arrives first at the table, listens to Don't Stop Believing by Journey on the mini jukebox, and watches customers come and go. Carmela arrives next, and Tony tells her Carlo will testify. AJ then arrives and reminds his father of his advice to remember the good times. Meanwhile, the focus is placed on many different customers at the diner, including a man wearing a members only jacket, who heads to the bathroom by Tony's side. Meadow arrives late and parks her car outside after a number of tries. As the entrance bell rings, Tony looks up and the screen suddenly cuts to black for several seconds before the end credits begin rolling.
Because we know what happened. And now we can finally get to it. Made in America, people. This is where we are. This is where we are. Right? All right. So we're talking about it. Is Tony Soprano dead? Hell yes, he's dead. And I will tell anybody, as far as the eye can see, he's not dead because James Gandolfini is no longer with us. We got a death in this show, and we got closure on Tony Soprano long before James Gandolfini had passed away. So, in the very first episode of this part 2, he's having a conversation with Bobby, and Bobby says you probably don't even hear it when it happens. You probably just because why would you? That bullet's meant for you, so you're not gonna hear what happens after. You're not gonna hear the crowd scream. You're not gonna hear anything. And our introduction into this show throughout this season, particularly, there are several episodes where the show starts for us when Tony is waking up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our indication that we are seeing all of this from Tony's perspective. So when the door opens and all of a sudden it fades to black and everybody is cussing HBO out, that is the indication that Tony is gone. He didn't see anything. He didn't hear anything. It just faded to black. So I'm saying, what more do you need to know that Tony is dead? He's dead, people. I've been waiting to tell y'all this for a long time. He's dead.
Do you want to hear my theory?
Let me talk to me about it.
I believe that you are correct. However, I believe that man was there to kill Tony Soprano.
Yeah.
However, I believe Tony died before he had the chance to. And here's my theory. All right. Way
Okay.
back, I believe it's season 1, but it may be season 2, but I do believe it's season 1. Something that was picked up on, and it's very important, I think, that they concluded therapy the episode prior, because I think only Dr. Melfi has insight into this. She's at the neighbor's house and she hears that manic exercise session, weightlifting session that Tony does. And she's the one here. Yes. I believe that right before he was to be assassinated, Tony Soprano has a massive heart attack and dies from that overexertion of everything that he's done in his life, because it is brought up and it is mentioned and shown and never brought up again. That's my own personal headcanon. I believe everybody else, if I had to go with something else, was that he was killed by the man in the members only jacket.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
From the and as payback from what happened in the episode Members Only.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, and you're the person that educated me on that, because at first I just knew the man was dead. I just didn't know who killed him. I thought that it was poetic that it would be the guy in the members only jacket, and the fact that he went straight to the bathroom, which goes back to the conversation that Tony had with AJ about why Godfather is one of his favorite films, because of the bathroom scene. The guy had to go into the bathroom to get the gun to do the hit because he couldn't have it on him. Right? You couldn't be caught with a gun on you, so you had a gun waiting for you in the bathroom. And I thought I was like, that's really poetic that the dude goes to the bathroom to get the gun to kill him. I'm like, oh man, that's tough. I didn't even think about a heart attack, but then I'm like, bro, Tony Soprano is too G to die from a heart attack. There's some people that are just too gangster to die because the body gives up on him. No, Tony's body would never give up on him. All the gabagool he ate, he's immune to a heart attack. He's got Teflon veins.
So would you like to hear some trivia about the show?
Let's go.
James Gandolfini said he was often contacted by real-life wise guys, complimenting him on the authenticity of the series, as well as giving him advice. David Chase only directed 2 episodes, the first and the last. It is said that during some scenes, James Gandolfini inserted a small stone in his shoe to anger him, making him play the role of Tony Soprano more authentically. He would also stay awake at night for some of the breakfast scenes to achieve the tired look.
That's what's up.
After the pilot aired, a real-life wise guy told James Gandolfini never to wear shorts again. The encounter seems to have been incorporated into season 4, episode 1, For All Debts Public and Private, when the New York City mob boss Carmine tells Tony that he'd heard about his recent backyard party and that a Don doesn't wear shorts. However, real-life ex-mob capo and street boss Michael Franzese disputes this claim, whereas his father's son wore shorts on a regular basis.
Nice.
Lorraine Bracco was originally asked to play the role of Carmela Soprano, but she felt that the part was too similar to her character in The Goodfellas.
Right.
She decided the role of Dr. Melfi would be more challenging. When asked if there would ever be a movie based on the series, James Gandolfini jokingly replied that it would only happen when David Chase goes broke. Nearly 14 years after the end of the series, David Chase produced the prequel, The Many Saints of Newark. Series creator David Chase had one rule for the scenes in Dr. Melfi's office: no camera movements. Ray Liotta was a top choice to play Tony Soprano, but he turned it down, stating that he did not want to commit to a television series. Later, Liotta was in talks to play Ralph Cifaretto, but ended up not taking the part. Ray would end up taking a role in the prequel film, The Many Saints of Newark. There was rarely improvisation on set. The scripts were followed verbatim, and any possible change was discussed with David Chase first. James Gandolfini is the only cast member to appear in every episode. Corrado Soprano's nickname, Junior, was taken from the actual nickname used by Tony Sirico when he was a gangster as a young man before he became an actor.
That's what's up.
As of 2007, the show's staff had accumulated 6 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Writing for a Drama Series, a record. Every season but the second received Emmys for the writing. Tony Sirico only agreed to sign on for the show if it was guaranteed that his character, Paulie Walnuts Gultiari, would not be a rat. As Sirico explained in James Toback's documentary, The Big Bang, he had served time in prison for robbery. Altogether, Sirico's rap sheet included at least 28 arrests. Reportedly, he appeared briefly in an uncredited role in The Godfather Part 2. Some aspects of Sirico's real life, a brief stint in the military, etc., were added to Paulie's life as well. It was the first cable television series to win the Emmy Award for Outstanding Drama Series. HBO was worried that the title of the series would make the audience think it was about music. That is why the gun image is in the title logo. The network also considered other titles for the show, such as Made in New Jersey.
No, I don't think that one would have hit the same.
Series creator David Chase is a longtime fan of Steven Van Zandt's music. He saw Van Zandt induct the Rascals into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and invited him to audition for Tony Soprano, even though he had never acted before. Van Zandt did not want to take a role away from a real actor, so Chase wrote the role of Silvio Dante for him. Michael Imperioli is the only major cast member whose credit also includes writing or co-writing for the series, having worked on 5 episodes. Appearing in a recurring role, Tony Kalim as Angie Bompiancero also wrote 1 script and served as story editor on 5 episodes. While playing Kevin Finnerty, Tony Soprano's dream alter ego, James Gandolfini speaks in his natural accent. Michael Rispoli originally auditioned for the role of Tony. Series creator David Chase liked Rispoli's audition so much that he adjusted the role of Jackie Aprile Sr., originally a much older character, to fit Rispoli's age. In season 5, a story about Feach Lamano was told concerning his killing of a New Jersey longshoreman for refusing to give up his favorite seat in a bar. This story was based on a true-life incident involving former Philadelphia Atlantic City crime boss Little Nicky Scarfo. David Chase claims the relationship between Tony and his mother Livia was based on his relationship with his own mother Norma. Livia is also the name of the Roman Emperor Augustus's conniving, murderous wife, especially as portrayed in I, Claudius. Max Casella, Benny Fazio, originally auditioned for the parts of Matt Bevilacqua and Jackie Aprile Jr. Both characters only lasted one season, but Benny remained until the final episode. When Jamie Lynn Sigler was first called to audition for Meadow Sopranos, she knew nothing about the premise of the show. From the title, she thought it might be about opera singers.
That's awesome.
The only cast members with no Italian heritage are Jamie Lynn Sigler, Robert Eiler, David Proval, Nancy Marchand, and Jerry Adler, although Adler's character was never supposed to be Italian. Joseph R. Ganascoli was originally cast in a season 1 cameo as Gino, a customer in the bakery where Christopher shoots a teenage counterboy in the foot. He was then recast as Vito Spatafore in season 2 and continued in that role until the end of season 6, part 1.
That is right. That he was in that episode. Thanks for reminding me of that one.
Tony refers to Christopher as his nephew throughout the series. However, Christopher is Carmela's second cousin on his father's side, who is known as Dickie, and Christopher is Tony's first cousin once removed on his mother's side, since Christopher's mother is Tony's first cousin. Asked what he thought of the series, Martin Scorsese admitted that he watched a few episodes but couldn't get into the show, claiming that it was a different generation's gangster culture than what he remembered and grew up around. No one directed more episodes than Tim Van Patten, 20 of the 86 shows for which he received 4 Emmy nominations. He also shared a Writing Guild Award for his story idea for Season 3, Episode 11, Pine Barrens, which oddly enough, he did not direct. Drea D'Amato's unnamed hostess character appeared in the pilot in a quick restaurant scene. In the next episode, she appears as Adriana, Chris Moltisanti's girlfriend. Later, she is Artie Bucco's hostess. Mm-hmm. Tony Sirico and Frank Vincent auditioned for the role of Uncle Junior. Sirico was offered the role of Paulie instead. Vincent joined the cast as Phil in the 5th season. In season 1, Chris shot an employee of the bakery in the foot. That's a reference to Goodfellas.
Spider.
Where Joe Pesci shoots Michael Imperioli in the foot.
Spider.
Voted number 1 in TV Guide's top 60 greatest TV series of all time in their list from 2013, moving up from number 5 in their top 50 lists, despite the show having only aired for 3 seasons at the time of its first ranking of number 5. The Sopranos lived at 633 Stag Trail Road, North Caldwell, New Jersey. Although Lorraine Bracco received second billing in the opening credits, she appeared in fewer episodes than Edie Falco, who received third billing. David Chase, during an interview about the ending, stated, "Everything you need to know about the show's ending is there." Steve Sciarippa originally auditioned for the role of FBI agent Skip Lipari. Patti LuPone auditioned for the role of Janice Soprano. While she never appeared in the series, her real-life older brother, Robert LuPone, appeared in 5 episodes as the Sopranos' neighbor and family physician, Dr. Bruce Cusimano.
Cool.
Real-life ex-mob boss Michael Franzese has said of the show, if a mob boss was ever visiting a psychiatrist, he'd be in the trunk of a car by the end of the week along with the psychiatrist. In season 6, Christopher repeatedly refers to his film's project as Saul Meets the Godfather. In one episode, he's even seen watching Saul on DVD. Tobin Bell, the actor who's played the character Jigsaw in the Saw movie franchises, appeared in the 3rd season of The Sopranos as a military school official.
He does.
In January 2000, the Coalition of Italian American Association issued a joint statement condemning the show for perpetuating negative Italian American stereotypes. Catherine Narducci, who played Charmaine Bucco, was the most liked character during the initial screening of the pilot ran by the network. So when they ran her for a test audiences, she was the most popular character, the most liked.
I mean, Miss Buko was cute.
Casting directors Georgianne Walken and Sheila Jaffe have stated that Jerry Stiller was first offered the role of Hesh, but he turned it down because it conflicted with the commercial he booked.
Hold up. I mean, I guess I get it, but I'm like, dog, bro, like Hesh was, and I love the guy that we got to play Hesh, but I think Jerry Stiller would have brought something different to it.
Yep. This one is interesting to me. Tony Soprano takes the medication Prozac as part of his therapy, yet it is seen throughout the series consuming alcohol. Mixing alcohol and Prozac is considered dangerous by the psychiatric community. Alcohol can nullify the effects of Prozac.
Which would make sense as to why he still had issues after taking the medication. It wasn't consistent.
Only one of the 86 episodes was directed by a woman, Lorraine Senna, season 1, episode 7, Down Neck. David Chase never watched the series. He's only watched a couple of parts of episodes to refresh his memory or to do research or to look at an actor that he'd forgotten. Drea DiMatteo finally remembers the generosity that her co-star, the late James Gandolfini, showed over the course of the successful drama series. The actress told Fox News Digital about just a few of Gandolfini's acts of generosity, include giving the Sopranos cast members $30,000 checks after they were left out of the show's DVD deal. Wow. I mean, this is a man who called us into his trailer one by one and gave us each checks for $30,000, and we're like, what is this for? And he said, we just cut a deal for DVDs and they didn't include you guys.
Wow.
James Gandolfini was cast after David Chase saw him in Get Shorty. The guys are all Godfather fans, and coincidentally enough, their own Uncle Junior was Johnny Ola in the second film. David Chase had planned a major storyline for the third season concerning Tony's efforts to prevent Livia from testifying against him in court. However, Nancy Marchand's death caused Chase to revise a large portion of the season. Drea DiMatteo was completely unaware that her character would be killed off and written out of the series until she read the script before the episode shoot. Though she left the show prematurely, her performance for her final season earned her an Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Drama Series. In an interview, David Chase revealed that if he hadn't gotten the show's pilot episode greenlit, he was determined to shoot another hour of material and release it as a movie, ending with the scene where Tony panics trying to kill his mother with a pillow.
What could have been.
What could have been. David Chase once admitted that though it worked dramatically, he has considered the storyline of Tony and Carmela's separation not believable because mobsters and their wives usually don't get divorced. JT Dolan is beaten up by Chris Moltisanti in every episode in which he appears until Moltisanti finally kills him in season 6. Robert Loggia's character of Feats Lamanna was meant to be a season 5 antagonist before shooting, but he clearly found it too hard to remember to do his lines, so he got cut to only 4 episodes. It is likely due to him later being diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's. It is reported that it took hours longer than it should have for his scenes due to his difficulties. Gandolfini was super supportive, patient, and helped him do his lines during the whole thing and never complained. Joe Pantoliano was told when he first took the role of Ralph that the character would only last 2 seasons. In the scene Johnny Cakes, Tony's son AJ told him Tony's favorite scene in The Godfather, as you mentioned before, was the bathroom scene. At no point during the show is Paulie Walnuts considered an important enough member of the DeMeo Sopranos family for both the FBI and rival families to target.
Which is wild, considering he's involved in so much stuff.
Right.
And he knows a lot.
3 more. Except for Uncle Junior, Paulie Walnuts, Gualtieri, and Larry Boy Barisi, all of the made Soprano crime family members that address Tony Soprano as Anthony at some point throughout the series do not live to the series finale. In season 4, episode 10, The Strong Silent Type, Christopher Moltisanti, played by Michael Imperioli, is surprised that he is summoned to a drug intervention for his uncontrolled use and abuse of heroin. During the intervention, Tony Soprano becomes angry with Christopher, yelling at him that his drug abuse will eventually kill him. Tony says, "We're here to talk about you killing yourself with drugs." Christopher responds, "I'm going to kill myself. The way you fucking eat, you're going to have a heart attack by the time you're 50. This turned out to be a very prophetic statement, as Gandolfini actually died from a heart attack by the age of 51 while on vacation with his son in Rome, Italy. And the one that surprised me the most, Nancy Marchand, Tony's mother, Livia Soprano, was born on June 19th, 1928, and died one day before her 72nd birthday on June 18th, 2000. James Gandolfini died on Marchand's 85th birthday on June 19th, 2013.
Wow.
That one stopped me. Stopped me.
Wow. How Tony and Livia connected like that, man. Like, that is... Look, as we're not completely done with the show, we still have the film to discuss, because it ties a whole lot of other stuff up and brings back some references from some earlier stuff that we get, talking about, Dickie Moltisanti, which is Christopher's father, because we don't hear a lot about him in the series, except for we know who Christopher was told killed his father.
Right.
And the subsequent torture that would come from that. But just to do a recap of 6 amazing seasons, very well written characters that you could really sink your teeth into. Great show.
I totally agree. And I think that we can give our overall final thoughts when we do the Many Saints of Newark. But my friend, before I let you go ahead and plug any and everything that you've got.
Oh man, we just finished the run of the Men Inside here in beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina. So what's coming next? Stay tuned, man. Stay tuned. Check the IMDb page. I got some more stuff coming. And as always, if you want to hear me, away from here, if you want to hear more of me on the Joey Harris Show, because you get me on What We're Watching. I'm a co-host on this one. But if you want me on the Joey Harris Show because you've been itching, because you ain't heard me since February, you know what to do. Hit them comments. Let that man know what's going on.
You're going to be on this week's episode.
Listen. I have to make a big deal about this, Joey. I got to make a big deal and let you know that I care. Thanks for having me, brother.
One last time. A psychiatrist.
What are you talking about? Go back and watch episodes earlier in What We're Watching, because you get a lot of Livia and AJ, man. That's the comedic duo of early Sopranos.
And if you are jumping on this late, first of all, where have you been and why are you jumping on this late? But the older episodes are slowly but surely, as I find them, being uploaded to the channel. So you will be able to get everything in one place. And then after I get everything uploaded, I'll put playlists on, and this will be the Sopranos playlist and other things that we're doing. But I wanted to do just a little tease. This is what we're doing, folks. We will get to the Many Saints in Newark. That'll either be upcoming or we'll do that later in July. But in July, TJ and I are tackling a very important project. The first thing of which is that we will finally settle the Is Die Hard a Christmas movie debate, because we are doing all of the Die Hard franchises. We're going to die hard. Then we're going to die harder. Then we're going to die hard with a vengeance. Then we're going to live free or die hard. And then finally, we're going to find out if it's a good day to die hard.
Right. Big fan of Bruce Willis. And y'all, look, I've had this debate before on whether or not whether or not Die Hard was a Christmas movie, and I got passionate. So I got source material for y'all whenever we get to that one. Yippee, yippee ki Uncle Brothers.
That's in case we ever get picked up for network. Mr. Falcon. As he said, all right.
Mother, brother. What?
All right. But thank you all so much for watching at Joey Harris Comedy at gmail.com and at the Joey Harris on social media. TJ, love you, my brother. We will see you all next time.